The idea of Jake Paul stepping into the ring with Gervonta Tank Davis sounds like the kind of fantasy matchup that social media thrives on. But when you break it down, it's more circus than sport. From the beginning, there were questions about whether this fight could realistically happen. Jake Paul is a natural cruiserweight, walking around at nearly 200 pounds, built like a linebacker, while Gervonta Davis is a small lightweight, fighting at 135 and maybe walking around 150 at most. That's a 52-60-pound gap on paper and in the real world. It might stretch closer to 100 pounds once Jake bulks up. Physics matters in boxing. Skill, speed, and technique can bridge gaps. But there comes a point where size becomes a shield that no amount of precision can crack. Still, the hype built quickly. Jake Paul himself fueled the fire, praising Tank Davis's monster-like training while reminding everyone that he's never been knocked out, even after years of sparring and competition. For Jake, the fight was less about being outskilled and more about proving that his discipline, self-belief, and preparation could neutralize Tank's power. That confidence is what has carried him from YouTube stardom into a boxing career that, love it or hate it, has changed the way the sport markets itself. The real obstacle wasn't trash talk, it was regulation. Rick Thompson, chairman of the Georgia Athletic Commission, flat out said that the weight discrepancy made the matchup unsafe. He revealed that Jake Paul's team even withdrew its request for permits and a rule waiver, effectively admitting that the fight couldn't happen under Georgia's rules. He called out the promotion for selling an illusion to fans, saying tickets were being sold for an event that should never have been marketed as legitimate. To boxing purists, this was proof the whole thing was nothing more than smoke and mirrors, yet controversy only added fuel. Even after Georgia shut the door, the fight buzz continued when Jake Paul shifted the supposed venue to Miami. Moving from Atlanta to Florida wasn't a random decision, it was calculated. Miami has become a hotbed for celebrity-driven fight spectacles, and relocating kept the story alive. While regulators in Georgia had no interest in risking their reputation for this mismatch, Miami's looser entertainment culture fit perfectly with Paul's brand. Tank Davis, meanwhile, once again found himself in the middle of political drama, something that has followed his career more than once, when venues or commissions became obstacles. And while promoters and politicians debated, fighters and analysts weighed in. Chris Algieri, a former world champion, praised Jake Paul for what he's done for boxing outside the ropes. According to Algieri, Jake's genius lies not in his skill, but in his ability to bring in new fanspeople who never cared about boxing before, but tune in because Jake makes it entertainment. He turns fights into crossover events that blur the line between sport and spectacle. To Algieri, even if Jake isn't a world champion, his presence is good for boxing because he attracts attention that traditional fighters can't. But others weren't so forgiving. Critics argued that Gervonta Davis, for all his knockout power, is simply too small to hurt Jake Paul. Floyd Mayweather himself couldn't knock out Logan Paul. And that size gap wasn't nearly as wide as this one. The logic is simple. If Floyd, one of the greatest of all time, couldn't put down a much larger opponent, why should anyone believe Tank Davis could knock out Jake? At best, Davis could frustrate Jake with speed and precision. But the idea of one punching him into unconsciousness seemed like wishful thinking. Chael Sonnen, never shy about calling things as he sees them, pointed out another problem promotion. Tank Davis, despite being a tremendous fighter, is not a natural showman. He doesn't sell fights with words the way someone like Jake Paul does. In Sonnen's eyes, Tank may bring legitimacy through skill, but Jake is the one who knows how to hype an event to the mainstream. Without Jake's marketing machine, this fight wouldn't draw headlines. And without Tank's reputation, it wouldn't draw credibility. It's a partnership born not from competitiveness, but from the need to merge to very different strengths. Shawn Porter, another former champion, defended Davis's decision to even consider such an exhibition. To him, boxing is not just about legacy, it's about financial security. Fighters have short careers, and if an exhibition fight with Jake Paul pays $100 million, why wouldn't Tank take it? It wouldn't go on his official record, it wouldn't put his titles at risk, and safety measures could be negotiated in advance. For Porter, the backlash missed the point. This wasn't about proving greatness. It was about protecting the future and cashing in on an opportunity most fighters would never see. And then came the public backlash. Purists scoffed at the idea, saying these exhibitions blur the line between boxing and theater. They wanted Jake Paul to prove himself against ranked contenders, not smaller fighters or retired legends. They accused him of turning the sport into a carnival, exploiting aging icons like Mike Tyson and luring them back into dangerous situations with the promise of big paydays. For them, this wasn't about growing boxing. It was about cheapening it. Jake Paul's defenders countered with a simple argument. The fights aren't fixed. People need to stop throwing that accusation around. Critics accused Paul of staging outcomes, of adding no knockout clauses, or of scripting results to build drama. But Paul himself, along with his team, has made it clear that while these events may be exhibitions, the fights are real. His issue is not with people doubting his opponents, it's with people outright accusing him of faking the sport. To him, that damages his brand and undermines everything he's trying to build. At the heart of this debate is one question. What is boxing supposed to be? If it's pure competition, then Tank Davis versus Jake Paul makes no sense. The size gap is insurmountable, and the fight would never be sanctioned as a legitimate contest. But if boxing is entertainment, then maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe fans don't care about rankings or weight classes, they care about spectacle, about the unknown, about the possibility that skill can conquer size. The truth lies somewhere in between. Boxing has always had exhibitions. Legends have always returned for one-off events. Spectacle has always been a part of the sport's DNA. What Jake Paul has done is amplify that spectacle and merge it with modern celebrity culture. He thrives in controversy and pushing the limits of what fans and commissions will accept. Tank Davis, meanwhile, represents the purist's dream. A real fighter with real skills and a reputation built on knockouts, not headlines. Together, they create a collision of worlds that is messy, controversial, and impossible to ignore, whether or not the fight ever happens. The conversation itself shows how much boxing has changed. It's no longer just about belts and rankings. It's about narratives, social media, and marketability. Jake Paul versus Gervonta. Davis is not just a fight that tests size against skill, it's a fight that tests what boxing even is in the 21st century.